Hello, I'm Nathan Judah. I'm here with Wolves reporter Tim Spiers. Tim, Wolves this season on the road have been absolutely fantastic. 3,000 fans, last away game of the season. What happened?
They're rubbish.
They were pretty poor. They were pretty diabolical.
They probably saved their worst first half performance away from home for this game. Actually, should have been 5-0 at half time.
Yeah.
They were completely fell apart. No discipline. Easy to play against. The back two and the keeper weren't actually that bad. It was more, there was no protection from midfield. I think you can look at Sace for both goals.
Yeah.
And then you can look at the fullbacks as well. Well, I say fullbacks. Midfielders playing at fullback.
Yeah, which they basically are, aren't they?
Saville had a really tough time against Tom Ince, who ran the show for Derby first half, and likewise Conor Cody against Johnny Russell on the other flank. So you don't want to criticise the players too much because, like I said, they're filling in, particularly Saville. He's not a fullback at all and never will be. So the main positive for me is that they didn't get a hiding. Because
but they should have done.
Should have been 5-0 at half time.
Yeah.
Derby at the bar twice. They had one cleared off the line.
Yeah, it's not half chances. These were legit full-on chances, weren't they?
It was a shellacking, in the first half.
I like that shellac. I like it.
And somehow they got away with being 2-1 down at half time. Derby got the third, and thereafter they coasted it. It was like a training game for the last half hour.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the red card didn't help, but at the same time the game was over before Cavallero got sent off.
I mean, there's no kind of excuses that should be made here. The red card didn't change the game. Wolves were dreadful at that point already. 1-0 or 2-0 at that point, but 2-0. It could easily have been more. But it just doesn't help. He's just been an idiot.
I was going to say, I mean, what's he doing there? I mean, we all have Rush as a bloody etc. But at the same time, he's got no better than that, doesn't he? He's been in this game now for a while.
It doesn't matter if you're 16, 17, or 35 like you. It's doing you a disservice there. You can't do that. You can't do that in any league, in any country. You can't put you forward to someone else's and get away with it. And to be honest, you don't want to cast aspersions, but he didn't fancy it today, and he hasn't fancied it enough times this season. And he hardly looked distraught to be walking off today. I mean, that's his season over now and go on his holiday. Does
he miss the start next season, or is that to TBD?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, violent conduct, you'd expect a 3-game ban. But Lambert's called it a moment of madness. Said there's no defending it. Edwards looked annoyed with him. He was, telling him
he knew
to,
Dave Edwards knew, didn't he, straight away?
Edwards was telling him to get off the pitch. Edwards had a word with him. Because he got involved in some skirmish before the red card, and Edwards had a word with him to try and calm him down, and he hasn't calmed down. It's just pathetic, to be honest. So it hasn't cost Wolves the game today, because I believe they would have lost anyway, but it doesn't help, and that's his season over.
Noah Dicko was pretty good though.
Yeah, that's as good as he's been all season. He was so sharp. He was creating chances for himself. That's how good he was. His hold-up play was excellent. He was so sharp. He kept kind of spinning and turning defenders and getting in good positions in the box. A couple of shots just wide, one right across the face of goal that Saville couldn't quite reach, and then he set up the goal, got to the byline. I just thought he looked back to his usual self. There was no one around him helping him, by the way, but he looked great, and he hasn't done it enough times this season. I think he'd admit that himself. But Lambert speaks very highly of him and keeps talking about him being here next season, so I think he's one that's set to stay.
So is it just the 8 changes that were made? Is that why they got beat today? I mean, there's a lot of these players I feel that are playing for the futures, and yet they're not really impressing Paul Lambert, are they? Because they're not impressing us.
I mean, it didn't look like it. Midfield, I mean, Derby have got a great team. I don't know how they're not in the playoffs, but you look at Lee Evans and Roman Sace today, completely overrun. Like I said, the fullbacks had poor games, but I'm not going to attach too much blame to them because they're not fullbacks. But that midfield pairing, I mean, Sace, like I said, involved in both of Derby's goals. He completely just let Bradley Johnson go for the second, just let him run into the box unchecked, and he has a free shot. And then what elsewhere? I mean, Cavallero's let himself down. Ben Marshall hasn't had the best game either. Edwards and Dicko were the only ones that come out with credit for me. And Burgoyne as well. Edwards completely ran his heart out all game. He was the only one that really gave a damn in that second half. And that's about it, really. It's just a miserable afternoon.
Derby, of course, Derby and Wolves will be in the Championship next season. I mean, on the face of it, I know it's easy to say after this game, but do you feel that Derby have got a better chance of making a run to the Premier League next year?
Well, they've got far better foundations than Wolves have in terms of a team. Like I said, I'm amazed they're not in the top 6 already. I think they've got a manager that will sort them out next season. I'd be confident of Derby getting in the top 6. But yeah, as far as Wolves go, there's so much work to do. Oh, lawnmowers have stopped.
No, happy days.
There's so much work to do.
But Paul Lambert said that they will be better next year. He's come out and said it after the game.
He spoke really well today, and he said, he's not going to learn a huge amount about his players today. He's not going to judge them on one game. He knows what they can do and what they can't do. And
Does that mean he's made his mind up on certain players already?
Yeah, absolutely. And he has, a fervent belief that Wolves will be a lot better off next season. But he needs the help from above. I think if he does it his own way, then I think Wolves' chances are pretty good. I think if you look at the signings he's brought in, the away record, he's shown he's tactically astute away from home. I think there are a lot of positive, good signs there. He talks a bloody good game as well. But he needs to get the right players in this summer, and he says it time and again. Him and everybody else has got to be on the same hymn sheet, because if there are, if him and Thelwell are disagreeing, or him and Dalrymple, or more importantly, him and Jeff Shee are disagreeing on the way forward and the type of players that need to come in, then he'll walk.
Serious problems.
Well, he'll walk.
So, how confident are you next season? Are you hopeful? Are you worried? I mean, what's the situation? Where do you think Wolves are at the moment?
Well, first of all, they've got to sort the Costa situation out. Pronto. It looks like he's off. I don't think he'll be here next season. Not
playing next weekend. That's it.
No, not going to play next weekend. So whether he gets a goodbye to the fans or not, we'll see. But it's got to be sorted out sooner rather than later, because if they get £20 million for him, they want it at the end of May, not at the end of August.
Absolutely.
This goes without saying, because that money will be reinvested into the team, I believe. So that's got to be sorted, because he's been such a key part this season, and there's only Ben Marshall in this squad that can play on the right wing. All the others play on the left wing, so they'll need a right winger, obviously, to replace him.
And if he goes, there will be an immediate backlash, regardless of what happens. And I'm sure some of the fans will not be happy.
There will be some, but I think many recognise that he's on the way now. I don't think it's not going to be a surprise.
As long as those funds, like you say, as long as those funds get reinvested.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it goes without saying. That's the key. But
so, do you think Paul Lambert could have £20-30 million to spend next season? Is that what we're saying?
I would say 20 million would be the maximum. If they got 20 million for Costa, you'd expect a large chunk of that, if not all of it, to be invested in the team.
I mean, they better be better next season, because if Wolves have got £20 million as a Championship club to spend next season after spending the same amount this year, I mean, or more.
No, but it's not just about spending money, though. It's spending on the right players, and that's what's going to happen this summer. That Lambert, Thelwell, Dalrymple, and Shee have got to be on the same page, because if they're not, and Paul Lambert doesn't get his way, then he'll walk. He's done it at Blackburn before. If he doesn't get what he wants, then he'll go. And I think he's proven with Marshall and Vyman that have come in that they've been shrewd additions. And I think the type of players he wants to bring in are the right players that Wolves need at the moment. They need battle-hardened experience. The kind of players that Derby have got. I mean, people like Tom Ince and Bradley Johnson, they'd be fantastic additions to the Wolves team. Those are the kind of players that you want.
Get him in.
Young mid-20s, played a lot of games, but talented and could play in the Premier League. That's what you're looking at. I mean, Chris Martin's one that they've looked at before. I think they should be looking at him again. So the most important thing is that Lambert and Shee are on the same page, because if last summer we saw with Shee, he went a bit mad. He let Mendes off the leash and just like we need 12 players in there. Let's just see who you can get. No one had heard of any of them, and half of them have left already. So Lambert has got to be calling the shots for me. If he does, he talks a very good game. But I think he comes across very well with the fans sometimes, because he's quite dour and understated, and it maybe doesn't come across in print. But if anyone spends 10-20 minutes with him, you'll see the passion that he's got. And he's got some great ideas about the way the game should be played and what Wolves need to get out of this division. I think he can do it. I think he can do it, but it might not be next season. It might be the season after. It's going to be a lot to ask to go for top 2 next season, isn't it?
Not top 2, but I feel like he knows that he's got to be in around the top 6 next year. Otherwise,
if they're
probably gone.
If they're 10th in October, November, I think he'll be off.
Yeah.
And he knows that. He's not stupid. So it's top 6 is minimum target next year. Flirting with the top 2, I think, that's what Jeff Shee would like. And then year 3 is the end year when they've got to be going up. So, but there's a lot of work to do. But there is a good foundation here. There are some good players at this club. You look at the likes of Courtney Hawes, Connor Ronan, Jordan Graham, Ben Marshall. You've got Zyro coming back as well. Dicko, we've seen score goals in this division. There's a nucleus there.
Potentially Vyman.
There's a nucleus there of a really good young and hungry squad that wants to get promoted, with a bit of experience in the likes of Akimi and Williamson, Dave Edwards in midfield. It just needs adding to. You need fullbacks coming in, you need a striker coming in. You maybe need a centre half and a centre midfielder as well. So if they can do that in the summer, then it's not going to be easy. But yeah, they should be in. There'll be no excuses for them not to be in around top 6.
Excited for next week? excited for the lap of honour, excited for crowd appreciation day.
I might call in sick.
Don't call in sick, then I'll have more work.
Oh no, we're back in bloody time.
Whoa, unbelievable. Yeah, but last game of the season at home, I mean, they need to do something, don't they? You'd have thought just to finish off the season on a good note. It's been such a crazy season. I mean, 3,000 fans going, I'm disappointed today. You just want to give a little bit back, don't you?
Yeah, they were magnificent. They were magnificent today, and you know, I think I'd like to point out that Lambert's comments about them this week have been totally misinterpreted. You know,
Twitter meltdown.
Well, it's ridiculous. He's never slagged them off. If you read his quotes, he's talking about opposition managers saying Molineux can be a tough place to play. Opposition managers. If you get the fans if you get the fans on their back, then they think they've got a better chance of winning. That's what opposition managers were saying, and Lambert repeated that this week. You know, everybody's very touchy at the moment, and Lambert can't say anything without being criticised. And it's just about getting this bloody season over with and starting a huge summer. I don't care about next week. Just get out of the way.
No, absolutely not. It's Derby County 3, Wolves 1 for the post-match reaction on this one. Make sure you log on to expressandstar.com.